What is up, you guys, and Merry Christmas Eve to those of you who celebrate Christmas. So today I want to talk about the $900 billion stimulus package that was recently agreed upon by lawmakers. But more specifically, I want to talk about the PPP program and some of the key changes that have been made to the PPP program and how they benefit you. So let's get started. So as you guys know, on Monday, lawmakers came to an agreement on a $900 billion stimulus package. In this stimulus package, there is a slew of different funding options for a variety of different government programs that will allow for Americans to have financial assistance that they've been really getting all year. Things like mortgage forbearance, eviction bans, unemployment, and so much more. In addition to these programs that are getting more funding, there is also a lot of small business programs that are getting funding as well. Things like the PPP and the EIDL program. The only problem as of right now, though, is that lawmakers have hit a bit of a hurdle given the fact that President Donald Trump has said he will not sign the bill in its current form. As of right now, there is a $600 stimulus check in this stimulus package, but Donald Trump wants it to be a $2,000 stimulus check. And he has said that he will not sign the bill in its current form unless lawmakers switch it from a $600 check to a $2,000 check. But the problem is, as of right now, Republican lawmakers have said that they will not support a $2,000 stimulus check. So what is going to happen in the coming weeks is quite honestly a bit unclear, and the future of this bill has definitely become a little bit more questionable, to say the least. With that being said, I still want to break down some of the key components that have been added to the Paycheck Protection Program. I want to break down what is included in the PPP, what has changed in the PPP, and most importantly, how this benefits you. Now, for those of you who don't know what the PPP is, the PPP stands for the Paycheck Protection Program, and this was a program implemented in the CARES Act to help businesses and companies make payroll. So it was a way to help companies keep their employees employed, keep their employees getting paid, and most importantly, keep their employees off of the unemployment line. Now, the thing about the PPP is that it comes in the form of potentially forgivable loans. So the way that it worked is that if you had a business where you had employees, you could apply for the PPP and you could qualify up to $2 million in PPP funds. And the amount that you qualified for with the PPP was determined by a formula outlined by the SBA. Now, the thing about the PPP, though, is that these funds were forgivable, meaning you did not have to pay them back as long as you spent them in the way in which they were intended to be spent. There was a series of guidelines that you had to follow. There was a series of rules that was outlined in the CARES Act, and if you followed the spending guidelines to a T, you could potentially have that money forgiven, or at least a portion of the money forgiven. Now, this was a good thing and a bad thing. It was a good thing because forgivable loans, free money, is always a good thing for struggling businesses. But the bad thing was the fact that at the beginning of the PPP, the forgiveness process was very confusing, it was very convoluted, and it was extremely daunting for the small business owners that took PPP funds. Because of that, since then, there has always been a fight of how can we make the PPP forgiveness process easier to understand, more streamlined, and more accessible for your average small business owner. And it seems as though in this $900 billion stimulus package, a lot of these issues were addressed. If you are somebody who's wanting to get funds in the second round of PPP funding, you could qualify even if you received funds in the first round. But you have to be a business that has less than 300 employees, and you also have to show a 25% gross revenue decline in any quarter of 2020 compared to a previous quarter of the same quarter in 2019. But this is only true if you are a second-time PPP borrower. If you are applying for PPP funds for the very first time, meaning you did not get any funds in the first round from the CARES Act, you will have to follow the eligibility guidelines outlined in the CARES Act, not outlined in this $900 billion stimulus bill. So while if you're borrowing funds for the second time, you have to show an economic loss, you have to show that you have 300 employees or less, if you're applying for the first time, you do not have to prove any gross revenue decline, and you also can have 500 employees or less. So the guidelines and eligibility requirements are slightly different given whether or not you are a first-time applicant or a second-time applicant. Secondly is the amount in which you can borrow. So the amount in which you can borrow is determined by how much you pay in payroll costs, and this is calculated by how much you pay for 2.5 months worth of payroll. This is more specifically 2.5 months of your average average payroll over the last 12 months. If you are in the restaurant industry, this bumps up to 3.5 months of payroll over the last 12 months. Another significant change to the PPP is the forgiveness process. So as I mentioned earlier in the video, the forgiveness process outlined in the CARES Act for the first round of funding was something that caused a lot of worry amongst business owners because it was very confusing, it was kind of convoluted, it was really tedious for really no reason, and there was a lot of concerns that this would cause for people to unintentionally spend the money in an incorrect way, which would thus result in them having to pay the money back. And this would cause a lot of issues, especially if the business couldn't afford to pay the money back. Now, with this newest stimulus package, they have streamlined the forgiveness process and have made it significantly easier to understand, and thus it will be easier to get your loan forgiven. If you are considered a small borrower or somebody who borrowed less than $150,000, the forgiveness application is just one single page. And if you're somebody who borrowed between $150,000 and $2 million, the application process is not one single page, but it has been streamlined and it is easier to understand than it was before. So this is just across the board good news for anybody who received PPP funds and they want to apply for forgiveness for those funds. Now, once this bill is passed and once this single page forgiveness application is what is going to be used going forward, I will be creating a video on how to apply for PPP forgiveness. So if you're somebody who applied for the PPP and you want to apply for forgiveness with this one-page application, make sure to hit the subscribe button so that you don't miss that video when it comes out. Also, similar to the revisions made to the EIDL program, with this newest bill, they have made changes to the tax implications on the PPP as well. And if you spend PPP funds on business expenses, those funds are tax deductible. According to the CARES Act, they were not tax deductible, but with this newest bill, they are, which is a big bonus come tax season. Now, with it being said, you guys, these are some of the key changes made to the PPP given this newest $900 billion stimulus package. Now, keep in mind, the stimulus package has not been officially passed yet, so these things are not set in stone and they may change, especially given the fact that there is now new negotiations going on the table with this $2,000 stimulus check. But regardless, this is some of the key changes that are at least being looked at being made. Now, one last thing to keep in mind is the fact that the PPP is not just for companies with employees. You can apply if you are a sole proprietor, an independent contractor, a gig worker, a self-employed individual. So there is a lot of ways to go about applying for the PPP, though in my opinion, I think the PPP is harder to apply for than the EIDL program. But if you spend the funds in the way in which they were intended to be spent, you do not have to pay the funds back. So that is a big, big plus. But with it being said, you guys, I would love to hear your thoughts. If you have any questions, if you have anything to add, if you have any comments, make sure to leave a comment down below. And while you guys are at it, make sure to hit the like button, hit that subscribe button, and hit that notification bell. And again, Merry Christmas Eve to those of you who celebrate the holiday. I hope that you have a wonderful day. And if you guys are interested in learning more about this newest $900 billion stimulus package, I will be doing videos all week long covering this topic. And if you guys have any specific questions that you guys want to be answered about this $900 billion stimulus package, make sure to leave a comment down below because I will be doing a frequently asked questions video sometime in the very near future. So I'll see you guys in the next video.